Hey everyone, it's Kabir here. So today in this session we are going to understand the code of context. Like we shall be implementing the context in this particular session. So in last video I have explained you what is the context in the React.js. So let us implement that context concept in this video today. So let's start. So what is the actually concept of a context? Suppose you have a data in a parent component. Now if you wanted to display that data in its child component, then every time you have to pass the data from one child to second child, second child to third child. For example, I have a hierarchy, like I have a parent like A as a parent component, then A child is B component, B child is C, C child is D. Now my data is present in A component and I wanted to display that data, particular data, in D component. Now whenever I'm going to use the props concept, what I have to do, I have to do the props drilling. That is nothing but I have to pass the data from A component to the B, B to C, C to D, then in the D I have to display. So in this, you're going to affect your performance of your application, because unnecessarily you are passing the data to B and C where they don't require any data. So to overcome this particular fault, they have implemented the concept called context. So what context is saying? Context is saying that you have to create a context object in a parent. Okay, fine, you have created. Now whoever the child of parent is there, like A class, A component children are B, B component children are C, so indirectly C is also child of your A component. Like this, whichever component need the data, now instead of passing from one component to another component, it can directly contact to that particular context object and it can use that particular data. That's what the concept of context. So let us see how can we implement. So for that, let's create some components. So in the component folder, let's create a component. Like I'm going to create one component known as parent component. Then I will create one more component known as a component. I will create one more component as B component. I will create one more component as C component and one more component as D.js. So totally I have created the 5 components: parent, A, B, C, D. So 5 component, and our app component is a 6 components. Now let's create parent component. So let's go with the class based component. So RCC tab. So we got something like this. So just let's remove these unnecessary things which we don't require now. Okay, fine, we have removed it, and let's remove this also. Now this is our parent component. So let's copy this. Let's go to our A component, just paste here, go to B, paste here, go to C, paste here, go to D, paste here. Just go and just change the name. So here should be the A component. It should be the A, and here it should be the A. In the same way, I want it should be the B, and here it should be the B component. And in the same way, here it should be the C. Just I'm removing it. It should be C, and here it should be the C. And here it should be the D. Okay, cool. It's D component, and it's also D. So we are now ready with the D comp, all the components. Okay, so just file, save all. Cool. So everything has been saved. Now we have created everything. So let's go to our app.js and let's import our parent component. So we will be displaying parent component in our app.js. So how can we do? Parent, if we have give the reference, and we have to give the path. Now how can we give the path? From now you are in the component src slash go to components slash go to parent. Okay, cool. Now let's keep here something like, okay, parent, done. So now we have did the half work. What is the concept now? How our architecture is going to look like? Just see here. Now I have this is the app component. Just consider. Okay. Now in this app component, I have one parent component. In this parent component, I have a component. Then in a component, I want to keep B component. Now in B component, I want to keep C component, and in C component, I want to keep D component. Now I'm going to create the data in parent component. I'm going to create one context here. Okay, I will be creating one context object. Now what is the relationship between your parent and A, B, C, D components? It's a parent-child relationship. So I have created the context in particular parent component. Now whichever component need the data, for example, D need the data. So D is going to fetch that data from this. Suppose B require the data. So B will fetch the data, will contact and fetch the data from here. So this is the concept of your context in React. So this is what we are going to do. So for that we have created all these things. So let us come to our VS Code. Now let's go to your parent and let's import here our A component. So how can, so first import A from a.js, right? Now I wanted to use this particular, this is the import. Cool. Now in the parent it should be the A. So let's take one card. So it would be better. So it will look a little bit good. So I'm going to take something like dot card body tab, and here I want to display A component. Cool. Now here let's write something like, okay, fine, this is what, so the A is the child of your parent component. In the same way I want to make the B as a child of A component. So first of all I have to import. So how can we import? Import B from, you have to give the path of B. That's it. Now here let's create one card. So it should be like card body. Cool. Here it should be the B component. So in the same way I have to create the structure, right? So just I will be copying this. Just go to your B. Here I have to import the C. So import C from c.js. That's cool. And just here enter, paste, and just change the value to C. That's cool. Now I have to import here D, right? So how can I do? So before that I have to import the D component. So import D from D. So now we build the relationship. So what is the relationship? Parent is the parent component. Now parent have one child called A component. Parent have a child called A component. A have a child called B component. B have the child called C component, and C have the child called D component, right? Now I wanted to create some data in the parent component. So what kind of data I want to create? Let's create something like name. Name would be Kabir. Then I want to create something like location. So I want to give LOC as a key. It will be like Mumbai. Then I want to create something like gender. It should be male. Okay, cool. Now let's create one more thing like email. So it's will do something like kabir@gmail.com. So we have created a state. Now my requirement is this data I want to display. So what we'll be doing, this whole data, this whole state data I want to display in the D component. Okay, so without context, what I have to do, I have to pass this to A to B, B to C, C to D, then I have to display the D. but now we are going to use a context concept. Cool. And one more requirement is in B component, I want to just display this particular two properties. In D, I want to display whole properties, all the properties. That's nothing at 4, like name, location, gender, email. And whereas in the B, I want to display only 2 properties. So how can we do? So the first step, what you have to do is like, so let us analyze what we have to do. The first step is like you have to create the context object. So how can you create? For that, React gave us a method known as react dot create context. This is the method. So whenever we are going to use this method, it is going to create a one context object. So let's do that one first step. So let's create something here. I'm going to create like const context, any name you can give, just I'm giving the context. So what is the react dot create context? This is the method, and we are passing an empty object, means initially it is a empty, there is nothing present. So we have created the context. Now the second step is, whenever you wanted to provide this whenever you wanted to provide this context object to the components, for that what you have to do is that they gave us a property, they gave us a component, like predefined component known as provider. So how can we write the provider? What is the object name? What we have created context. So context dot provider. This is the component. So we have to define. It should be something like this. Context dot provider. Right? Now this provider is going to take one attribute known as value. That attribute key is value. Right? In this we should pass the state, like what we are passing state, right? This dot state. So what is the meaning of this? We have created a context, and in that we are providing the value. What is the value? How can we provide? Using an attribute. This value should be the fixed, and we are giving the state value. So this state value, entire state, is going to store in your context object. Now to whom you wanted to provide? I wanted to provide to the parent component. So whenever you are going to provide this particular context object to component, like parent component, now this is available to every child of this parent. For example, parent child is A, so it is available for A component. Now A child is B, so it is available for B, and this B child is C, so it is available for the C, so goes on. So it is available for everyone. Now this is the way how can we provide the data to the context object. Okay, this is the way, this particular way means this value. This is the way how can we dump our state like data into the context object, and inside this context dot provider we are writing the component. So this is the way how we are providing this context object data to this particular component, and it's all the childs. So this is the process of providing. Okay, this is the second step. Third step is, now I have provided. Now how can I utilize? So let's first write it. So this is the A component, right? So what I want to do, I have created the card. So just remove this A. I want to create context dot provider. Cool. Now I want to provide this state value first to this context object. So how can I provide? Using the attribute called value equals to, and this is this dot state. So the meaning of this is nothing but you are going to provide this particular state to the context object. So it is a state. this particular state to the context. Okay, now you have dumped this particular data in the context object. Now whom you wanted to provide this context object to? The A component. Now once I am providing this particular context object to the A, it means it is available for all the childs of A. Who is the child of A? It's a B, so it is available for the B. Who is the child of B? It's a C, so it is available for C also. And who is the child of C? It's a D, so it is available for D also. So everybody is available. Okay, it is available for everyone. That's cool. Now we did the two step. Now the third step is, now we have kept some data in the context, we have provided that data to all the components, we have give the permission. Now how can we access, how can we consume that data? So the third step, whoever wanted to consume the data from that particular context object, okay, for them they also have to use the context dot consumer. Context.consumer. Now this is how we have to provide. Now who wants this data? This data want by B component. So we will be writing the, I mean to say, we have to provide this data to the B component. So how can we provide? We have to first write the context.consumer. So we are just giving the permission. Okay, you can consume here. We have to write here JavaScript expression. Okay, I have wrote the JavaScript expression. Some JavaScript expression I have wrote. Now in this expression, it will take one function. Okay, this function, it will give one function, and this function will return a UI, like how you wanted to display some data. And this function is going to take one parameter, some, that parameter type is object, and that object is nothing but the value, the state which you are passing in the context object. So it is coming in this particular parameter. Now if you want to display in h1, so how you will be displaying, you will be just saying index dot, what is the key? It's a name. That's it. This is how we have to say. So it's little bit complex. So we have easy steps, right? The first step is, first we have to create the context object. Okay, we have created. Second step is we have to provide data to that context. So how can we provide? Using this attribute, value attribute. Now we have provided the data through the context object. Now our data is in context object. Now whom I wanted to provide this whole data to? The component. Which component? Parent component. So the data is available for the parent, but it is not only for parent, it is available for all the childs of parent. This is the second step. Now we done the provided. Now how can we consume the data? For that, they told us we have to write that in the context.consumer component. This is a predefined component which is given by the React people. So we have to use it as it is. Just remember, providers P is a capital, consumer C is a capital. Okay, now this consumer is going to take a Java one function, right? In this function, it is going to pass this value as a parameter. Now here, it's not mandatory that you have to take index. You can take any value. So for example, I have took the index. So now this index is equal to this state. Now state have name, location, email, gender, property. So how can I access? Index.name, index.email, index.location. That's how we have to do. Now we wrote this particular code in B component. So this is what the concept. Let's go to VS Code and understand how we have to do. Okay, this is B component. Now this particular data is available to all the components, but I want to consume the data in B component. So how can I do? So let's do here, write a P and let's say it's a B components. Okay, cool. Now I want to consume. So how can I consume? So first we have to write the context. So before writing this, we have to make available this particular available for everyone. So how can we make? Using the export, just export. That's it. Now once we have did, just come to your B. Now I want to import. So how can we import? Import, just write and just say context and just say from, you have to give the file name. Yes, I'm going to import. Now how can we say context dot consumer? Yes, now it is available for the B. Now this consumer is going to take one function. That function we have to write in the JavaScript expression. So expression, now it is going to take one callback function. Not callback, it is going to take one function. Okay, this is going to take one function. It is going to return something. Okay, this is going to return your B component UI. Okay, so div, done. Now this function is going to take one parameter like data. Now this data is equal to your this particular state, and this state is present in this context. So we are accessing this context through in B through this particular parameter. Done. Now here I want to display the values. So how can I display? Just I'm going to write h5 and I'm going to save something like name. How can we access from object any value? Data means object name dot key name. It's a name. I want to access one more property. What is the property? Location. Just copy, paste, and just say LOC. And here you can see location, right? Location. That's cool. So let's see whether it's LOC or yeah, it's a capital L. So we have to give here capital L. And its a name should be small. Yeah, it's a small. Cool. Now this is how we are going to display. So let's see. Now we are just to represent, we are saying this is a B component. Let's go here A and let's say something like it's a component. And let's go to our parent and let's say it's a parent component. We will be writing inside the card. Okay, everything we have to write inside a card. So we didn't make a card here, so let's make a card dot card body tab and just cut this everything, just paste here. That's cool. Save, just go to B. So it's a, yeah, cool. That's everything cool. So let's give some background color. So for parent I want to give like BG dark, and for A I want to give something like BG primary. For B I want to give something like BG success. Cool. Save, just go to a terminal. So now once you come to the terminal, how can we run our React application using a command npm start? So let us see how it is going to display. Now our data is in parent component and I'm displaying in the B component, and it should not come in the A component. So we have failed. Context is not exported. Okay, let's see whether it is not exported. Export const context. It's a capital C. Okay, context are provided. Okay, first context from A. Okay, context dot consumer, that's also right. From A, it's not from A, actually it's from parent, because our context is present in the parent component, not in the A component. Cool. This is all here. Now see, this is a parent component. Here we have the data, and in the A component, now this is the B component. So now we are able to display the data in the B component. This is how we are able to display. Okay, now let's see how can we display same thing in the C. So let's go to our VS Code. Just come to your, let's see how can we display the data in your D components. So for that, let's take on card dot card body tab, enter. Now here I want to display the data which is present in the context. So for that, first of all, I have to import the context. So how import? It's a context from parent component. Okay, now how can we consume? For that, they told us that we have to add the context dot consumer. Okay, this is the tag. Now this is going to take one function. So that function we have to write in JavaScript expression. Okay, expression, define a function. Okay, I'm going to define a function. Okay, now that data is present as a parameter. Okay, like I'm going to say D data. Okay, now this is come as a D data. Now here it is going to return the UI. So what UI? It's a div. Okay, fine. Now what it want? It should display. It should display all the properties. So for that, I'm going to take H5. I'm going to say something like name, and here we are going to display how. So it's like the data dot name. Cool. Now I want to display all the 4 properties. Just copy and just paste it. Now here I want to say it should be location, LOC. It should be gender. I think it's a gender, and it should be email. Now let's change this something to location. Okay, this to our gender. Okay, this to email ID. That's cool. Just save it. Then that's it. Just go to your. That's cool. So let's differentiate this one. So how can we differentiate? I want to say it is a B component, right? Now here I will be saying something like BG light. Okay, and in the C, I want to say this as a C component, and I want to give something like BG secondary. So just to differentiate all this, we are doing this one so we can understand. Just come here. That's cool. Now our data is present in parent component. I don't want it to pass that data to A, then to B, so that I can display here. So what I have did, I have created one context in parent component. Now from that context, I'm directly displaying only 2 properties, name and location, in the B component. Now in C component, I don't want it to display anything. So it's like that. But in D component, I'm displaying everything. And it is not coming from B to C, from A to B, B to C, something like that. It is directly coming from the context which is created in the parent component. So this is the context, like this is the concept of your context in the React.js. So that's all for this video. Thank you guys.